Okay, now it's recording.
Okay, so the complaint on this dryer was the board lights up, you can select the cycle, you can press start, and the machine won't run. But other information was given to me in tech because the computer board was changed, the main board. In this case, this one's back here. The main board was replaced, and all the thermostats and fuses were replaced. So when someone tells you, okay, I did this and these parts were replaced, what should be one of the first questions you ask? Now, the reason why I bring that up is what's the first question you ask? Because put yourself in a technician's shoes and you're the one in front of the machine. And another technician before you changed all these parts, okay? You didn't change them. But you go there for the first time and you press power and you do this and you press start. That's your thought process when you're starting to troubleshoot. You know, people always say, I go to a machine that's not working, I see it's not working, I don't know where to begin testing. Well, the question I'm asking you guys is the question you would ask yourself when you're trying to troubleshoot it. Yeah.
Was it replaced with the exact same parts?
Yes, they were all factory parts. Yes.
Okay, my question is the last technician maybe put something the wrong way.
He could have, but it's the same problem before he changed the part and after he changed the part, it's the same thing. So if it was miswired, I doubt it, okay? But what you're thinking is what the technician did and not about the process of the machine. This is your dryer in your house. How do you use this dryer? What do you do first? You open up the door, throw your clothes in, press power, do this, and press start. When you press start, the machine runs, but what else happens?
I guess
The lock,
the door
the
switch.
leak.
No, it's a washer, it locks, it's a dryer.
Oh,
It beeps. And you're like, big deal, you know? But by you pressing this button and it beeping means that the main board is accepting your communication to that board, telling it to run. Okay? Now, if the door was open and you press this button, of course the dryer's not gonna run. It might not beep. But I'm saying something as simple as just listening to, I press start, it didn't even beep, tells you, what could it be? It's a new board. Could it be a power problem?
It could be.
It could be. The board light up, but the board takes 120 volts out of the 240, and 120 goes to this transformer on the board. Now, not all diagrams show you the transformer on the board, but you would say the white wire and the black wire comes into the board here, and you see how it feeds that transformer. If you didn't see the transformer, like let's take a look at this diagram here. We have, where's the power coming into this one? This is the GE version that we have here. Where's the power coming into this one?
Bottom left, L1 going up through black 12, I think it says.
If you're talking to me, what do I want you to tell me where it is on the board? How do you tell me where it is on the board? If I tell you my house is, I give you an address, right? Are components on this board address K504, J303? Where's the power coming in? Here's the power here. Comes into J101. He was saying L1 and neutral, but he wasn't saying the address. If I'm talking to you over the phone and how to check it, I might tell you, go to J101 on the board and look for the black wire and the white wire, and that's where I want you to check it. Okay? But there's no transformer here, is there? So how would you know that that is the power coming in if there's no transformer? This is something you as a technician need to know, okay, just by looking at it. Now, if we go back to this one here, because I want to stick with this one because this is the one that my technician had a problem. And I'm going to show you something on this dryer and some things you could do on this dryer. Okay, so the dryer didn't run. He told me it didn't beep when he pressed start, okay? And first thing I told him is, did you check the door switch? He says, oh, I checked everything. So I could take this machine apart. The door switch is right here. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but we'll look at it in a minute. So the door switch is right there, but I'm gonna have to take the controls off and everything to get down to that door switch. So how else could I check that door switch? If I wanted to check the door switch, but to get to the door switch itself, I gotta tear a whole bunch of panels off. I don't wanna do that. Where's an easier way to check it?
From the board?
From the board. Where on the board would I put my meter to check them? Well, first we must find the door switch, right? Where is the door switch in this thing? Bottom left, so it's right here, okay? Now, if we look, we got how many wires? 1, 2, and 3, and number 3 goes to the lamp. I'm not worried about that. But the one that I was talking to the tech didn't have the lamp. You could also open the door and the light comes on, you know you got 110 volts coming in, right? But how do you check the door switch now? I'm not worried about pin 3 on the door switch, because that's only for the light. That's not for the dryer to run. What 2 terminals on that switch need to be closed in order for the dryer to run?
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
1 and 2. So where do they go to the board where I would tell you, put your meter here and here on the board, because if you put your meter on these 2 wires on the board, it'll go down and check that switch for me. Where on this board? So if you followed 1 backwards, where does it actually touch the board?
So VH1
You could
and
do-
BL2.
Yeah.
Right there. Pin 1, a white wire. Right? Is that where that wire goes?
Yep.
Or the power cord in the back of the machine. But what about pin number 2?
BL2, pin 3.
BL2 pin 3. So you would put your meter here, and using the wires of the machine, I can open and close the door to see if it's working. Okay? So he tested it, and the meter said the door was opening and closing. So what does that mean?
You have power.
Not that power, but the door switch is good. But one thing about this machine, if the door switch was bad, usually the display will say DR. Saying, hey,
Door
close
switch.
the door.
Sorry.
And yeah, the door's closed. Maybe the switch is bad. Okay? But not all of them will tell you bad door switch. Okay? But that's one of the things. So I checked the door switch. What else could I check? Because the dryer's not running. When I press start, what's supposed to be running?
The motor.
The motor. So what would I check for?
Power going to the motor.
Okay, power to the motor. Where would I check power to the motor?
BL2 pin 1.
Well, let's do this before you even say it. Here is the motor. This is one side of the motor going to what? Pin 7. And the other side of this motor goes to pin 3, which also runs over here, right? So where on the board would I put my meter to test at this point here? Where does it go back to the board? We do one side first. Let's take number 7. It goes to where?
BL2 pin 1.
BL2 pin 1. Okay. Where's the other side of that circuit? So this one is going through a belt switch. That means down on the motor there's a belt and there's a switch. If that belt breaks, the motor won't run. What's the other circuit? where does 3 go? Follow 3
That would
down.
also be BL2 pin 3.
Right here. So what test am I making there? What test am I doing right now?
1 continuity.
I can do a continuity test. And we talked yesterday, me and Coyer, I think we're talking about continuity versus ohms. A wire has continuity, but 0 ohms of resistance. The winding in a motor has continuity, but actually has a resistance value of 3 ohms, 5 ohms. Continuity just means it's not broken inside. Doesn't mean the part's good. Actual resistance values tell you if the part's good or not. So one of the tests we can make from here and here is that motor. And most motors about 3 to 5 ohms. So I'm looking for about 3 to 5 ohms. And he did get 3.5 ohms. Is that good? Okay. So what have we done? We've checked the door switch. The door switch was good. We know power's going to the board, which is white and black. And if we see this black wire coming in feeds the motor, and this white wire here, the same 2 wires that feed the board are what feeding the motor. So we know there's power coming into the board, right? So what would you do at this point? We got good resistance. What does that mean, good resistance in this test?
That the parts should be good.
Okay, but let's break down the parts. What parts should be good?
The motor,
belt switch,
the belt switch.
The
door
motor,
switch.
the belt switch.
Door
Yep.
switch, blower thermostat.
Well, we're not going through the door switch. The wire goes to it and jumps right back. It's not going through the switch, am I? Okay, what else?
Blower thermostat.
Lower thermostat. Okay, if I got a reading here, all those parts are good. Now, if I didn't get one, if I get a reading, one of them could be bad, but now I know I gotta check each one. But we had a reading about 3 or 4 ohms. So that told me that whole circuit's good. Not only are all those parts good, the motor's good, the belt switch is good, the blower is good, but also all the wires going to the motor's good. Even if the motor was physically bad, when I press start, what would happen? If the motor tried to run but didn't run, what would I notice?
You would hear it.
You would hear it.
I'd hear what?
It try to wind up and
It
not
clicked the
click.
relay.
You'd hear the motor humming. You'd hear the relay on the board clicking, because if the motor don't run, you could possibly hear a click like that, that the relay was trying to send power to the motor. And you could hear if the motor's getting power, because the motor would hum. Okay? So now what test would we do? Because the dryer's still not running. And the board, by the way, is brand new. So it's not a board. And I
Power
just
to the
proved,
wall.
what?
Power to the wall. Make sure it's
Power
getting
to the wall.
250.
Well, why don't I just leave my meter lead right there? And what would I check?
Voltage.
I check power. What that is not only did I check resistance, but if I switch the meter from ohms to voltage and press start, I should have what there? 120. Because this is line 1 and this is neutral and this is line 1. If I got power here, I know that the board is trying to tell the motor. Okay? Now, the technician said I have 107 volts. Is that good?
No.
Might be a little too low.
Yeah, for the motor.
So now what did I tell my technician?
Check the power from the wall.
Well, we have power to the wall, and try and tell the customer it's a power problem when the board's lighting up. It's very difficult to convince the customer that that's the problem. So what can I do now to confirm? The machine's good. It's your electrical. Or the electrical's good, I made a mistake, and the machine's got a problem that I just haven't found yet. So what tests can I do? What things can I do? Okay, y'all are gonna think of this. This is where I think outside the box. If the outlet that this machine is plugged into is bad and doesn't have proper voltage, Unfortunately, the plug on this machine will only fit in that one outlet in the whole house, because the other appliance in your house is 240, which is your stove, but the plugs are different. You'd have to switch plugs and everything. But the motor runs off of how much? 120 volts. So the first thing I told him is, go to the house and pick one or two 110 volt outlets in the home and see if that outlet is giving you 120 or 107. Because even though this is a 240 volt outlet, what is this? Line 1 in neutral. In a 110 volt outlet, it's either line 1 in neutral or line 2 in neutral. So if I go to 2 or 3 different outlets and they're all giving me 120, but I go here and I'm getting 107 volts, right there, I know it's got to be 120 because 110 volt outlets are giving me 120. Okay? But I can go a step further, because telling the customer, look, the voltage here is not the same. Yeah, but the outlet's not the same. You know, customers come up with crazy answers. So, you know what? I checked the outlet in the wall, it's 120, but the dryer outlet's not 120. I need you to get the camera for me, please. So,
How it's working.
I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do. We're gonna get to the bottom of the machine here. I got a 110 volt cord. And we have a little test cord. Now I recommend to my technicians, we have a test cord. Imagine a washing machine full of water. And the lid switch is broken. You don't have a lid switch. You need to get the water out. Well, you could use a wet and dry vacuum, suck it out. You could try to drain it out. Or you could take a test cord, put 120 volts to the drain pump, plug it in, and let the drain pump pump it out. You don't need the lid switch. You go right to the pump and use the pump of the machine to pump the water out. Now, back in the day when I was working on machines, pumps were all belt driven, so we couldn't do that. But what we could do on this machine is I got black, white, and red. Okay? So it doesn't really matter line 1 and neutral, but if I hook up one of them to black, like this, and one of them to white, like that, if I can get it plugged in there, 1 second. I'll do it to the screw here maybe. It'll probably pop off once the machine. So all I'm doing is powering up line 1 and neutral. If that extension cord, I can go to the 110 volt outlet in the customer's house. On my dryer. Now it's not going to heat. I have to dry it in. Now, I go and plug this in the customer's outlet in the wall.